So these are AH-1 attack helicopters biting the dust. These have been schwacked. I'm going to talk to you today about the mission that took these down and full breaking news updates on everything that's happening on day 6 of the Israel-Iran conflict. Welcome to the video, everybody. It's Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner. Today we're diving into the heart of the Israel-Iran conflict. Call it a war, call it whatever you want, but it is a raging inferno. In the last 24 hours, Israel's Air Force and Mossad have unleashed a tech-driven assault. Basically, they put F-16Is, F-35Is into a strike package with a heart-pounding result, and that is vaporizing Iran's attack helicopters. The F-35Is being the stealth jets leading the charge. We'll dive into how they paved the way for the F-16Is, and then we'll talk about the covert ops that worked with this strike package to make it all happen. These are going to be gripping stories from the front lines of the Iran-Israel conflict and potential looming threats for U.S. forces in the region. We're talking about air superiority at its peak right now in Iran as we speak. However, Iran is like a dog backed into a corner. We don't know what they're going to do. So I'm going to dive into the potential options of how they will react and how U.S. forces can counter that in the region. This is going to be a heart-racing video. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit excited. Let's dive in. So as a quick recap, we know that Israel has launched Operation Rising Lion. Their ultimate goal is to dismantle Iran's nuclear and military power. We're 6 days in, and the toll has been grim so far. We've got reports of over 225 deaths in Iran. Israel's counting somewhere around 25 deaths. And then the IAF is armed with F-35 Adir jets that have the Spice 2000 bombs. They also have F-16Is that are loaded out with those Spice 2000s. The covert ops combined with these fighter jets, guys, it's dominating the skies over Iran. Right now, there's air superiority. Essentially, these F-35Is are the daddy of Iran's airspace. If you've seen my previous videos, we've talked about how they've established that. But in the last 24 hours, so June 17th to 18th, 2025, Israel has obliterated nuclear sites. We'll briefly talk about that. And then they've also obliterated these AH-1 attack helicopters, and F-14s were taken down just a few days ago. And I'll dive into the quick story on those F-14s, but I'll do a full video on that later. This video is going to focus on those AH-1 attack helicopters and that strike package that went in to take these things down, and how we'll likely see strike packages like this moving forward, what a strike package does, how they coordinate with each other. That's all going to be covered in this video. So this is yet another mission from Israel that set the Middle East ablaze. On June 18th, F-16I's flight lead, likely with a call sign of Falcon, spearheaded a strike package against Iran's attack helicopters at Estefan's 8th Tactical Air Base. It was roughly 3:30 a.m. A squadron of F-16I Sufa jets, backed by F-35I Adir stealth fighters, they roared into the night, and this is likely when all these strikes are going to take place, guys. Roaring into the night, hunting at night is the specialty of the F-16I and the F-35I. I flew the F-15E in combat. I was on nights for about 5 months, and that's when a lot of work is done. Hunting at night with all the different tech and sensors that allows you to see at night. When it comes to stealth, obviously that's great, but even better at night, because stealth combined with not being able to visually see anything is obviously the best idea. And for the F-35I, they're definitely taking advantage of that. What I took advantage of in the F-15E was having night vision goggles and then IR, infrared markers. So you can basically paint something, you can show something with certain IR pointers and point out exactly where targets are, and you can only see it if you have night vision goggles. So it's one more layer of protection, one more layer of stealth. So hunting at night is likely what we're going to continue to see. But this strike package of F-16Is and F-35I Adirs roared into the night. They're armed with Delilah cruise missiles, and they're armed with those Spice bombs. Their target, 5 AH-1J Sea Cobra helicopters, known in Iran as the Tufan. And Iran may have been using these helicopters to hunt Israeli drones. The IRGC uses these to try to protect missile sites. So at this point, Iran is essentially trying to protect all of their missiles so they can retain some offensive capability, which they think might be a bargaining chip if they're able to maintain some missile launchers and protect them from Israeli drones. But let's talk briefly about the AH-1. It's a 1960s US designed gunship. It's Iran's premier attack helicopter, and these things are pretty awesome. awesome. They've got a max speed of 141 miles per hour, roughly a 315 nautical mile range. They boast twin T400 engines. The helicopter itself weighs around 10,000 pounds, and it's armed with a 20 millimeter Gatling gun. 750 rounds per minute on that bad boy, no big deal. It also fires 2.75-inch rockets. This helicopter is very agile, and it's nothing to take lightly, but it definitely lacks modern countermeasures, so it makes it very vulnerable to Israel's tech. And the fact that it's a helicopter going up against fast movers, that's just never going to be an easy day for any helicopter. And obviously these are sitting on the ramp as they're struck and taken out, but likely it was very hard for them to get pilots to fly these attack helicopters to want to go up and start to take out Israeli drones, since they know that as soon as they get airborne, they're a sitting duck. They're just a nice, tasty little morsel for an F-35 or an F-16 that's up there with AIM-120s or AIM-9Xs or even the gun. Fast mover versus helicopter. Even though fast movers can carry heaters, likely these helicopters have not carried heaters and have never been trained in carrying heaters. A heater is like an AIM-9X. An AIM-9X is an infrared tracking missile that targets in on heat signatures. So likely these helicopters have basically no defense, unless you have the golden child up there who gets a spray and pray of that 20 millimeter cannon against an F-16, and that's just something that's folklore. The strike package, like we talked about, took off at 3:30 a.m. On their way towards the border of Iran, they're preparing all their different weapon systems as they go feet into Iran. And then at 4 a.m., roughly 500 miles into Iran, the strike package starts to ready their weapons. They're skimming mountains potentially at 200 feet to dodge radar, or they might just stay high based on the fact that they have F-35Is that can protect the skies. They've got F-35Is that are literally up there with them, hoping that some S-300 radars are still alive and turn on so they can get some action too. Likely the F-16Is were the main star of this strike package, with the F-35Is using their stealth and their suppression of enemy air defense capabilities to strike down any radar sites that may be unlucky enough to turn on. Even if that golden child's in a compound using a radar to control multiple S-300s, there's nowhere they can hide from that F-35I. That F-35I is going to sniff them out, and that's basically their specialty. That's why they've been able to establish air superiority over Iran, and in this strike package, it's no exception. That stealth jet has the tech and the distributed aperture system that can target any remaining S-300 air defenses and then fire its spice bombs to neutralize launchers. Per satellite imagery, there's multiple destroyed radar sites. Again, at the time of this video being produced, multiple have come up. So at 4:40 a.m., Iranian SAMs potentially got a lock on if there was any of them still remaining. If that was the case, the F-35I would start screaming at the pilot, saying a warning that, hey, we've got a lock on from a missile. And again, if there was an S-300 battery that happened to just turn on last second, they could fire a shot off. But the F-35's not an easy target, as you can imagine. If that S-300 battery can even see it, maybe it's for a glimpse. Maybe it's for a fleeting moment where they fire off their missile, and then the F-35 disappears like a mosquito from the scope of that radar operator. And the missile flies harmlessly into the night and likely explodes as it burns out. And then at roughly 4:52 a.m., the Falcon's Delilah missiles slammed into the tarmac, igniting all 5 AH-1s in a cataclysmic firestorm. If you've seen this video, you can just see how final this is. These helicopters will never fly again. And the explosions also sparked a nearby missile depot holding ammunition for these helicopters. And then the big thing with the strike package, guys, after your bombs smash into the target, you have to remember that you have to RTB. You have to now fight your way out. So at this point, the F-16Is have delivered their deadly payload, and now the package needs to return to base so they can load up and do it all again. So they may have cemented a heroic blow to Iran's rotary threat, but they've still got to get home. They've got to protect their jets, they've got to protect their formation, so likely the F-35Is led the way out again. The F-35Is are looking for any other radar sites that they can vaporize on the way out, and they can now have a kill because they don't want the F-16Is to be the only ones bragging when they get back to base. And that strike on the helicopters was just part of a relentless air blitz that's taking place likely right now as you're watching this video. And let's talk about a quick recap of June 17th when Israel hit a centrifuge production site at Natanz. They destroyed likely most of the production capability for enriched uranium, and this was vital for Iran's nuclear program. They also took out a missile factory in Covert, and these missile factories are incredibly important since these missile factories are potentially building an arsenal that could hold Israel like a hostage. They could hold Israel at bay. North Korea does this to Seoul. North Korea has roughly 500,000 pieces of artillery that are pointed directly at Seoul. So it's really hard to do anything against the North Korean regime, even if they enact terror. It's hard because they've got a gun to the head of Seoul. So Israel wants to prevent Iran from having this exact advantage over Israel, because if Iran has nuclear weapons, they've essentially got a weapon held to the head of Israel, and Israel wants to prevent that. But here's the key. If Iran has enough of these missiles that they're continuously slamming into Tel Aviv as we speak, now they've got that same gun against the head of Israel. So Israel has struck multiple missile factories in Kojor, and likely F-35I Adir jets with their 1,200 nautical mile ranges use spice bombs for surgical precision strikes on these missile launchers. Natanz, that underground uranium enrichment facility, was also heavily damaged. Thousands of centrifuges have been destroyed. Israel also has crippled Iran's air force. At 8:49 p.m. on June 17th, IAF drones were reported to have taken out F-14 Tomcats at Tehran's Mehrabad International Airport. And then on that same day, Iran launched 3 missile barrages into Tel Aviv, where most of the missiles were intercepted and no new casualties were reported. Mossad's also been busy. They've done pre-strike drone attacks on S-300 defenses to pave the way for these strike packages, going up against the AH-1 helicopters and going in to take out the F-14s. And again, I'm sure most F-35 pilots and F-16 pilots were a little bit sad to see those F-14s get smashed. I know I was. Couldn't we have just saved one of them for Top Gun 3? And I want to dive a little more into the drone operators that have been hard at work. On June 17th, a drone operator, likely with the call sign Ghost, struck a symbolic blow. They launched that Hermes 900 drone to destroy 2 Iranian F-14 Tomcats at Mehrabad International Airport. This will be a quick review, and then I'll do a full overview of this. But Mossad agents were embedded in Tehran, and this was how they took out those F-14s, those 1970s relics. Those things are classics. Again, if we could have just saved one. But Israel wants to be certain that air superiority reigns. They don't want a lucky F-14 to take off, get a kill against one of their drones. A kill against their F-16s or F-35s is essentially out of the question. But who knows? Anything could happen. So Israel doesn't want anything going up against them to challenge their air dominance. And that's why that precision strike rocked those F-14s. So Iran is reeling. They're on their heels, but they're not defenseless. And they could strike US forces in the Middle East with their ballistic missiles. Their ballistic missiles are really the only playing card that Iran has left. And it's been said that Israel has currently taken out about 1/3 of those ballistic missiles. But with 1,200 or so ballistic missiles still under the control of the Iranian regime, it's essentially a wild card. This dude's a full wild card. The Ayatollah could do anything at any moment, and he could strike US troops in the region. There's over 40,000 US troops in Iraq, Syria, and Jordan, and Iran might, out of desperation, just hit that big red button like Dr. Evil and let these things fly. Iran's also got those proxy militias like Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthi rebels, and these proxy militias could do drone or rocket attacks all across the Middle East. We've seen attacks happen before in 2023. Proxy militias had an attack on Al-Assad base, and then the Houthi rebels obviously have been threatening US forces for most of 2025. And Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah, the guy you don't want to invite to any party anytime soon, the guy who'd be pretty boring at cocktail parties, you just want to fight everyone, he's essentially threatened the US in a way that has no uncertain terms. He said if the US enters this conflict at all, and he kind of has hinted that the US already has, and that he's seen the US as entering this conflict, but he's basically said Iran will fire their Fatah 1 ballistic missiles, and it's even said up to 1,000 miles of range with some of these missiles. So with this wild card, what will US forces do to try to counter these threats? Well, the US is prepared. We're prepared. On June 17th, the Pentagon has deployed THAAD systems, those Patriot missile batteries, to Jordan and Israel to help intercept ballistic missiles. We've also got F-22 Raptors that are rumored to be in the region now, and those are armed with advanced AIM-120 missiles that could potentially take down these specific threats of ballistic missiles. The F-22s could patrol Iraqi skies, Jordan skies. They could be in areas where Iran would least expect them to take out these missiles, like right above them, potentially unseen by any type of Iranian radar. And then the US naval power is nearing the region as well. So Aegis destroyers with SM missiles could intercept these weapons as well. CENTCOM has raised alerts. Patriot batteries are moving into Syria. And with the advanced F-15E anti-drone loadout with 42 projectiles, 42 rockets can be fired off that F-15E to take out drone swarms. So there is a lot of preparation from US forces to take down drone swarms, but the biggest challenge are those ballistic missiles. So what I would like to see are more F-22s in the area that can strike down ballistic missiles, potentially F-15Cs that can strike down ballistic missiles, and F-15Es could be focused on the drone swarms coming out of Iran. There is a massive movement of US troops into the Middle East, and I think we're going to continue to see this powder keg heat up. And this conflict ripples are definitely global. On June 17th, crude oil prices surged about 5% to over $75 a barrel, fearing escalation, and then airlines have halted flights. And this is something that I look at as a pilot to see, will things continue to heat up? And when airlines start canceling flights in certain regions, or they make certain regions no-fly zones, you know that things definitely have the chance to heat up. So China has urged its citizens to evacuate Israel, and cyber attacks from Iran towards Israel have shut down some of Israel's ATMs, but then likewise, Israel is cyber attacking Iran as well, and this is just sparking chaos across the region. Israel faces strain. They've got 3,000 evacuated. They've got 24 buildings slated for demolition due to the hits from those ballistic missiles. But then the IDF's, and especially the Israeli Air Force's dominance, is shining through. 70 Iranian air defense systems have been reported to have been destroyed since June 12th, and that contributes to that massive amount of air superiority that Israel enjoys. And then strikes on air bases in Iran have contributed to the weakening of Iran's air force, including those helicopters, those F-14s. Likely no pilots in Iran right now could be paid enough money or given enough awards to take off. They're essentially probably like, yeah, the only plane I'm going to take off to is going to be to the Bahamas because I need a vacation. And it's said that Iran's missile launchers have fell to close to a number of 50, and that is just wild. But they still have 50 that they can launch attacks against Israel with. So what I would expect to see is for Israel to just continue to hunt and pound these missile launchers to where Iran basically has no ability to hold that gun to their head. I would expect to see IAF jets like the F-35I, the F-15I, and the F-16I continue to develop these strike packages that go in and take out strategic targets, and in a relentless fashion that creates shock and awe, maintains air superiority, and continues to take out Iran's ballistic missile arsenal. And additionally, they've got to continue to strike Iran's nuclear capability, and in follow-on videos, I'll be giving you guys updates on Fordo, that massive underground bunker that's said to go down roughly 300 feet. Potentially the only weapon that can reach that is the B-2 stealth bomber GBU-47. That's a 30,000 pound bunker buster bomb. Can that go down and touch that enrichment facility? Will we find out? Will B-2s be rolling into theater? And keep in mind, these B-2s can launch from Diego Garcia. They can actually launch and fly full combat missions from Whiteman Air Force Base in the United States as well. These pilots can fly over 24-hour missions, and I'll do a full breakdown of what that mission might look like in a follow-on video. So there you go, guys. AH-1 Iran attack helicopters have been struck and vaporized, basically turned to dust. And this is the current update on Israel's air war on Iran's nuclear and air forces. It's been 6 days of stealth, fire, supremacy, and no easy day for the Israeli Air Force. The F-16I, the F-35I strikes on Estefan's AH-1 helicopters have lit up the skies. And that's just in addition to those ghost attacks on those F-14s. And then the nuclear ops, the nuclear capability that has been taken out by Israel's Air Force has been a challenging but very successful campaign so far. But with Iran eyeing US forces, America's ready to counter. What's going to happen next? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check out this video right here. That's essentially the best compliment you can give me, is to watch this video right here. Really enjoy giving you guys these updates. Thanks so much for watching. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, also known as the fighter pilot next door. I'll see you on this video. This is me, signing off.